This is amazing. Ryan Grimm wrote essentially a book review / article over at The Intercept. It just went up. The Taliban tried to surrender and the U.S. rebuffed them. Now here we are is the title of it. And the book is No Good Men Among the Living. It's by Anand Gopal. And the amazing thing is, right after we took down the government of Afghanistan, just a few weeks into the war, the Taliban tried repeatedly to surrender to the George W. Bush administration. And just share it with you from Ryan Grimm's piece here. So when the Taliban came to surrender, the U.S. turned them down repeatedly in a series of arrogant blunders spelled out in Anand Gopal's investigative treatment of the Afghanistan war, No Good Men Among the Living. Only full annihilation was good enough for the Bush administration. They wanted more terrorists in body bags. The problem was that the Taliban had stopped fighting, either having fled to Pakistan or melted back into civilian life. Al-Qaeda, for its part, was down to a handful of members. So how do you kill terrorists if there aren't any? Simple. Afghans that the U.S. worked with understood the predicament that their military sponsors were in, so they fabricated bad guys. Demand has a way of creating supply, and the U.S. was paying for information that led to the death or capture of Taliban fighters. Suddenly, there were Taliban everywhere. Score settling ran amok. All you had to do to get your neighbor killed or sent to Guantanamo was tell the U.S. that they were members of the Taliban. Doors would be kicked in, no questions asked. Men left standing became warlords, built massive fortunes, and shipped their wealth abroad. It's amazing. After the few years of this charade, after their surrender efforts were repeatedly rebuffed, the old Taliban started picking up guns again. And now the U.S. has managed to make the Taliban popular. This is a remarkable piece. By the way, it's Anything Goes Friday. Anything you want to talk about today, our number is 202-808-9925. There's a bunch of interesting things in the news. This is one of the more interesting in that it's just a demonstration of creativity. I'm not a big endorser of dog poop, but there's a group of white nationalists who want to have a gig in Crissy Field. This is a public park near the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's going to be a rally there tomorrow. And so this person, Tuffington was his name, said, Tuffington, in fact, said, I think I'm going to come up with something fun that would, well, he was walking his dog in Golden Gate Park, and he says, my dogs are doing their business, and I was struck with the image of a bunch of alt-right folks stomping around a field of poop. So he creates this fake Facebook event with a group of 15 friends, encouraging them to, quote, leave a gift for our alt-right friends in Crissy Field, this afternoon and this evening, so that Saturday morning when these guys show up, he said, take your dog to Crissy Field and let them do their business, and be sure not to clean it up. We'll see how this works out. I don't know if this is a really great idea or a really dumb idea, but it's pretty amazing. Yesterday, on a couple of occasions, I was referring to people, were calling in, they were talking about Fox So-Called News, and I referred to two websites that you can go to get great information about how Fox is lying to the rubes, to the people that it was specifically set up to indoctrinate. And one is MediaMatters.org. I got that one right. The other is newshounds.us. And I called it by a different name yesterday. I was wrong. It's newshounds.us. So check that out. It's a really oh, Sue says that's a crappy idea. the park. Yeah, I guess so. Oh, very good one, Sue. That's a very good one. There's another story here that I thought was, I've got a bunch of stuff to share with you just that I've been accumulating throughout the week. That, in fact, we mentioned on Facebook yesterday that I was going to talk about this on the radio today, and I never did get to it. And it's a concatenation of two different stories, or emerging of two different stories. One was in the Guardian, and the other was in the Financial Times. starting with the one in the Financial Times. It's by Amy Williamson. It's called "Why a Dumb Phone is a Smart Move." And Amy is talking about, thinking that she should swap her smartphone for a dumb one, because every time she sits down, she's looking at her phone. Every time she gets just a little bit bored, she looks at her phone. There's, we've got to check out Facebook, got to check out Twitter. And points out that this behavior that we're all participating in now, where, you sit down for 2 minutes, you're waiting for a bus, you're waiting for a metro, for a Metro car, excuse me. You're waiting for the waiter to show up in the restaurant. I mean, literally the moments when normally we would just kind of power down and look around and be present, be mindful, and just say, oh, what a nice restaurant. I'm waiting for the waiter. Now it's like, oh, the waiter hasn't come over yet. I guess I better check my iPhone. And so anyhow, Amy Williams says this is not accidental. She's talking about how these tech engineers, quote, speak in the language of addiction and behavioral psychology, although they prefer the term persuasive technology. There's even this company, Dopamine Labs. Now, dopamine is the chemical, the neurotransmitter that it jacks up really high in your brain, a little bit high when you take caffeine, a lot higher when you take cocaine or amphetamines. It's the ultimate reward chemical, or one of them. I mean, one of the major ones, probably the major one. And it's also the chemical that is released when, like, if you're gambling, if you win a game, boom, dopamine rush. Dopamine rush associated with the climax, with orgasm. The dopamine rush associated with a whole lot of things. And it's believed to be the key to addiction, understanding addiction. So Dopamine Labs, named for the chemical release in the reward center of the brain, offers a service to tech businesses wanting to, quote, keep users engaged. Founded by two neuroscientists turned programmers, it talks explicitly about using artificial intelligence to modify apps and thus release dopamine hits to, quote, surprise and hook each user. So Amy writes, robots are trying to alter your brain chemistry to make you spend more time doing something you don't want to do, which is hanging out with your smartphone. And she's right. So then the second article is from The Guardian. This is by Ben Tarnoff. They're both from the 23rd of August, which was, day before yesterday? Yeah. This one is titled, Silicon Valley Siphons Our Data Like Oil, but the Deepest Drilling Has Just Begun. And Ben Tarnoff opens the article by saying, what if a cold drink costs more on a hot day? Uber surge pricing may be coming soon to the restaurant or store near you. All kinds of prices will start becoming dynamic rather than static. Why, buying lunch at lunchtime will cost more than buying lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He points out that Facebook and Google together receive 76% of all dollars spent in the United States on online advertising. It goes to these two places, Facebook and Google. And Silicon Valley has to make a profit, beyond Facebook and Google. So how do they do it? Get people to spend more time online. Make the apps as addictive as possible. So how do you do that? Well, excuse me, this one is Ben Tarnoff writes, Amazon is going to show the industry how to monitor more movements by making corporate surveillance as deeply embedded in our physical environment as it is in our virtual one. Silicon Valley already earns vast sums of money from watching what we do online. Soon, it'll earn even more money from watching what we do offline. And he talks about how Amazon built a smart grocery store in Seattle. Now, right now, if you're online, if you're on Facebook, they literally are monitoring everything you do. If you're on Google, they're literally monitoring everything you do. How long do you read that story? How long are you on this site? How long, what do you mouse over? All that kind of stuff. But imagine if this goes into the real world. If your supermarket not only knew which items you bought, but how long you lingered in front of which products, what your path was through the store. Did you look at things at eye level, knee level, foot level? Where does your eye go? What are you doing? This data, Ben writes, holds valuable lessons about your personality and your preferences, lessons that Amazon will use to sell you more stuff online and off. And then he talks about how, and they're taking it a step beyond that with the Echo and Siri and all of these, quote, smart apps or smart devices that are listening to you constantly, to everything that's going on. And then he adds, in late July, Amazon obtained a patent for drones to spy on people's homes as they make deliveries. An example included in Amazon's patent filing is roof repairs. So the drone that's dropping off your package is also going to check out your roof and see if it needs to be fixed. If it does, then they'll sell that information to roofing contractors in your area. And then he says, what do we do about this? You know, we're being spied on to death, essentially, not just by governments now, but by corporations. The only solution, he writes, is political. As customers, we're nearly powerless, but as citizens, we can demand more democratic control of our data. Data is a common good. We make it together. We make it meaningful together, since useful patterns only emerge from collecting and analyzing large quantities of it. But that we should have some say. We should have some control over all this. And I agree. I think that that's a really important thing. And this is something we should be paying attention to. You know, and the whole idea of the addictiveness of applications, the addictiveness of the internet. Are you an internet addict? Have you experienced this? I know people who just, you know, they can't stand to be, you know, quiet and alone for even a minute or two anymore. I think that this is building an addictive response.